Hello everybody, my name is Sophie Jupiaposi, your resident French Venezuelan expat living in France, who's a writer and a musician. So if you've seen my other videos, you'll know that right now I am talking and promoting my short story collection called The Inside Out Worlds Visions of Strange. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of its publication, and so I am currently putting it out on BookFunnel, where people like you can buy it if you like science fiction / magical realism short story collections. So in other videos, I've read excerpts of the beginning stories in it. Today, I'm going to be focusing on reading a part of Clarion of the Dead. So it's, in short, it's a ghost story where protagonists can interact with ghosts. This story has been published in, officially published in Fabula Argentea back in 2018, I believe. It was one of the first stories I wrote for this collection. It's one of my personal favorites. I like stories that talk about ghosts and people who can interact with them. I actually haven't really read a lot, and I read tons of different kinds of books and stories, but for some reason I haven't really read many proper ghost stories. But if you have some that you recommend, and once you finish listening to this extract, if there's any story that reminds you of that, that you really liked and that marked you, then feel free to share it in the comments. You can always read. I want to discover stories in that similar genre. But in the meantime, let's read Clarion of the Dead. I'll read the beginning of it. And so here we go. Take me to where people go when they die. Clarion extended his homemade tickets in his scuffed hands. The people at the front of the bus laughed nervously. The bus driver's non-existent eyebrows climbed up past his widow's peak. Joke's over, kid. Where do you really want to go? Clarion nodded his head insistently. He extended his hands further, the ticket so close to the driver's face he leaned back slightly. No joke. I want to go to the place where people go after they die. Daddy said I could go check it out. He had, in fact, asked his dad multiple times to travel by train, boat, plane, and car. But it hadn't gone anywhere. It's hard to travel when you're a kid. People get suspicious. His dad had shrugged and put his head in his hands, as he often did, and said, Whatever, Clarion, do whatever you like. Go find your place. Leave me a note now, please. So Clarion had made his own bus tickets. His attempts to follow the ghosts who came to him, whether at home, school, the supermarket, or the park. He never sought them out. They always came to him at random times of the day and night. It never worked. Oh yes, they would come to him and talk, and reminisce about their lives, sometimes for hours. Clarion never got bored, even when their stories repeated. Clarion could understand them, even if they spoke German, Greek, or Chinese. He'd never learned those languages, but when the ghosts left and he tried to follow, they disappeared in a fog. Clarion was the best at hide-and-seek at his school, yet he couldn't find them after they vanished in that fog. Clarion's favorite visits were when he talked to his mom's ghost for hours, under the lemon hybrid tree in her backyard, but always stubbornly gave more tangerines than lemons. His mom told him regularly to keep an eye on his dad. She never said why, but she talked at length about when she was a girl, and she left melting ice cream on her babysitter's chair because she could. Her struggles with high school and how painful it was to be the school dork. Her love of riding her bike after a thunderstorm, pedaling as hard as she could toward a rainbow. Her passion for reading random books and spouting facts to strangers, no matter how uncomfortable it made them. Clarion had tons of memories she'd given him, but she never talked about her death. He followed her one and only instruction. He watched over his dad when he came home from work, nibbled on his crusty bread and expired slices of ham, and went to bed without saying goodnight. Clarion watched as his dad lost his job, drank too much, and fell asleep in front of the TV, weeping at some romantic comedy he didn't know the name of. He tried to remind his dad about friends, and that he should go out and talk to people. He asked his dad to play ping pong like they used to, but his dad never listened. He drank instead. Clarion tried hiding some of the bottles every now and again, but there were too many. And he didn't want to make his dad unhappy. When his dad did drink, at least, he didn't cry. Clarion wished sometimes his mom had tips for watching over his dad, but she had none. Clarion tried following the ghost of his mom many times. He would follow her, and the world would gradually lose its luster, its timber. He was the only thing that wouldn't change. He'd be able to see his striped shirt, full of mustard stains and chocolate sundae smears, as vividly as he could see his freckled hands, his skinny legs rife with scars. The world around him would turn off like a sleepy computer, but Clarion was not afraid. He knew it made him weird, but he didn't know what it was like not being weird. He would follow the ghost without fear, but after a while his mom would merge with a fog of dimness and he would lose her. If he walked sideways or backward, he would find his way out and end up exactly where he had started, following the specter. It wasn't just with his mom. He tried following the ghost of his next-door neighbor, the kid at school who'd drowned, the lady at the park who'd crashed her car, the man at the supermarket with a booming voice who died from a stroke, all with the same result. If ghosts could come to him, there had to be a way for him to go to them. Everything had an entrance and an exit, or so his 5th grade teacher said. Thus, Clarion had started his search for the land where people go after they die. He thought he should name it the Land of the Dead, but then it would sound too close to the places he'd read about in his friend Daniel's books. Books full of weird beings, monsters, gods, and places more exciting than Fiji, where Clarion really wanted to go one day. He wasn't sure his friend's books were accurate. Instead, he called it the Plaza of the Dead. It didn't look like today would be Clarion's lucky day. The bus driver did not look friendly, and neither did the people on the bus. Clarion said, "I do have tickets, you know." He looked at the ghost of his mom in the back of the bus. She was shaking her head. Her thick red hair swung and shimmered faintly over her freckled face. She hadn't approved of his plan from the beginning, but she couldn't change his mind. "Stop wasting our time, kid. Get out," the bus driver said. So Clarion backed out and huffed miserably as the bus left without him. His mother stayed on the bus. "Can't anyone help me find the Plaza of the Dead?" he asked the world at large. A few adults walking by eyed him and ignored him. Some said, "Go play elsewhere." Clarion sighed dramatically. He had to go and see for himself. Nobody could help him. Not even Daniel's strange, exciting books about cultures and death around the world answered his questions. None of them matched his perception of the Plaza of the Dead. So that is the beginning of my story, Clarion of the Dead. Again, if you have recommendations of good ghost stories, particularly where protagonists can actually interact with the land of the dead, please let me know. Or if you have other mythologies, like I know of the Greek mythologies, and some Celtic mythologies and stuff concerning the dead, but that's about it. My knowledge is pretty limited. So if you have recommendations of stories or myths that you really liked, feel free to share them in the comments. Thanks for listening, and again, the link for Book Funnel is in my link tree.